welcome to today's Cast and the Fly. My name is Cassandra Vaynerchuk, and I want to say thank you for joining me today. Today we're going to be discussing and talking a little bit about suppression and the suppression of the internet, not even specifically to politics. However, if you follow my content, you know that I'm a firm believer that our current political system is creating a complete suppression of us as a societal norm to agendicize every single thing from movies to music to social media platforms to include Hollywood celebrities, politicians, as well as content creators. My discussion in suppression has everything to do with the conversation around caring what people think. Caring what other people think about you. Now, I always like to come into this place of you always want to care what other people think of you, but more in a lighthearted version of that discussion. What does that mean? It means, are you in ethics, morals, and values? Meaning people like Amanda, who has a ONLYFANS page on TikTok, that type of person you want her to care what people think about her. However, Joe Schmo over here, who is creating content with education on making meals or fitness, or is really good at it too, by the way. That type of person needs to be grounded in ethics and morals and values, and this person named Joe Schmo actually is. However, Joe Schmo also has some lack of confidence due to the fact that when he was in third grade, Susie Jane over there made fun of him for this thing that he's teaching other people. And so every time a bot shows up on his platform and says some derogatory term, Joe Schmo gets stopped in producing his content. However, he'll go around to all his friends and say, "Hi, my name is Joe Schmo, and I don't care what people think." However, secretly inside him, when Susie Joe comes to his page and comments something, it puts him in a whirlspin of a downward spiral, puts him in a dark place, in a dark hole. Now, as fans and followers of Joe Schmo, what do you think that does to you? That actually puts you in a dark, downward spiral. Joe Schmo may still be producing content. However, his confidence level is low. And I'm not talking about the kind of confidence where you're not humble in confidence. No, you're just confident that your knowledge that you're teaching people is educative, is of value to others, and you are focused on doing those and being of service for those folks. See, a person who's self-aware is aware that Susie Jane over there is extremely insecure, completely jealous, and downright spiteful and mean. And Susie Jane will do anything to Joe Schmo to not only hurt him, but to hurt millions of people. However, Susie Jane is the one that's being cheered for. It's a big problem in society that all stems from the Democratic Party, from Hollywood, and content creators. You want to understand that these content creators who are all in their early 20s have no clue around existing. They think that money and power and looking cool at a party, the kind of people that you see in the movies, because that's where they learned all the information from, leaning back and talking extremely strange of shallow talks of how you're going to this place and how your fans and followers are viewing this. However, when you watch their content, especially in podcasts, they deliver absolutely nonsense conversation around how they ran into someone in the grocery store, and that's supposed to be an effective piece of content. These Susie Jane folks utilize that to grab an audience and then create an army against Joe Schmo. However, Joe Schmo actually has something to teach. And in order to do the thing that you want to do, you got to do a little bit of work. However, Susie Jane over there tells you that you don't actually have to do any work. You just have to look a certain way, talk a certain way, act a certain way, and you'll be invited on a podcast. And then you'll make it in the business, and then you'll have everything you want. Meanwhile, Susie Jane, also known as a bot, is creating and reaping havoc across the entire globe. However, Susie Jane doesn't have any ethics, morals, and values, and Joe Schmo does. You want to take a look at this in the long game versus the short game, in that the short game is that Susie may make $20,000. However, Susie Jane won't last past 30. Because people will, and no matter who is in charge, will grow and learn at some point, and they will get sick and tired of this nonsense. Meanwhile, over here, Joe Schmo has been falling in and out of confidence, which is great lessons for Joe Schmo. Great lessons. He's learning all kinds of lessons, right? To the point where at some point he stops caring what Susie Jane and her fans and followers think, because he's so grounded in the information that he's educating the audience on, that whatever he's teaching out there, he's actually living, which actually makes his fan base, whether it be 2, 5, or 4, or 7, or 10, or 30, or 50, or 1 million. Even one of those people who actually got something real of substance from Joe Schmo will spread an energy, the whole collective, of what all of Susie Jane's fans and followers are up to. Are you getting what I'm throwing down? Suppression comes from caring what other people think. You also want to understand that caring what other people think stops your creativity, meaning Joe Schmo knows this much. However, if Joe Schmo was in this open space of being able to create in a space of I don't care what people think, the creativity doesn't just stay here. He actually grows. He grows and he grows and he grows. And honestly, Joe Schmo only has an inkling of an idea, which is a little called manifestation, but it's also called imagination plus action, brings in ideas around manifestation that creates the thing that you want to create. See, most people are part of the secret team, where they want to buy a car, or they want to buy a fancy dress, or they want to buy that purse. Whereas Joe Schmo has dreams of changing the world. And changing the world isn't standing in front of an audience and looking cool on stage. That's called you're self-centered, egotistical, and you're actually creating suppression in the audience, which means that you're actually doing the opposite of what you said you wanted to do, which means you're part of the problem, not part of the solution. And that we've got a lot of that going on in society at this time. Meaning every podcast out there, and I listen to some of these in small snippets as they are located on TikTok in little pieces. I watched a gynecologist who's very intelligent and occurs to be very good at his job speak to a young, I would like to call her prostitute, and she's literally sitting over there like falling asleep as he's talking about birth control and hormones. Meanwhile, he is feeling suppressed in really being able to share with an audience, because now this prostitute who is on birth control is now stopping her audience from being interested in what the doctor has to say. Now, you want to understand that with all of these things that I'm saying to you, what is the problem here? The problem is you as fans and followers. Whether you are trying to create an outflux of information and be a content creator, not everybody wants to be a content creator. That's the imagination game of what some of you are trying to create for people, because you want to drive people into the market. However, in my personal opinion, some of you actually should be content creators, and those are the ones that are usually hiding in the back row. Because you have the sense of self to know that these folks at the front have the audacity, and honestly, you're probably in a pretty good space in your own personal life that you don't really want to ruffle too many feathers. However, I'm in the game of ruffling feathers. It's how people get transformed. It's how the awakening game actually happens. Not in violence, it happens in words. And it happens in a way of like putting into perspective multi-dimensional aspects of a case-by-case basis. Not a all or nothing, which is what Black Lives Matter is up to. I'm sorry, but if you're robbing a liquor store, a Target, a shoe store, you're going to jail. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. However, statistics show that you are not intelligent and you are rude and you're not friendly because you're cliquey. Jennifer, Hudson, that you actually are the ones that are the problem. Which actually, those of you who are calling out this are the problem. So that's the one thing that you want to get about people is on a case-by-case basis, most police officers are out to assist the people, which is why they took the job. However, you think because you're the mother of a trash heap, they have more rights than the victims that they hurt because of the color of their skin, which makes you all the racists. So suppression can come in many, many forms. The key to all of this is taking responsibility for yourself, seeing where you're being suppressed, seeing where you're taking on the feelings of others and their judgment, because everyone is always judging you. That looks nice. That looks not good. That looks good. I like that. I don't like that. I don't want to go there. I want to go there. I don't like that. Be quiet. I don't like that. Don't say that. Say this. Don't say that. Say this. Say this. Say that. Don't say this. All judgment conversation. It's human facts. That's the way we communicate to each other. You were taught these same things when you were a child of good behavior and bad behavior. However, somewhere along the way, you millennial Gen Zs didn't have any parenting. You decided that Obama was going to be your daddy. Call her daddy. If you want to know a suppressive individual, go watch the podcast of Call Her Daddy, who is allegedly married, I believe, to a doctor. And you tell me how a physician would take time out of his day to go on a date with that unless he's up to something. It is the craziest thing of all to watch you professional men and women bow down to these fools who are teaching absolutely nothing, have no foundation to who they are at all, and it's all being exposed on the internet. The whole point of today's podcast was to inform you of what versions of suppression look like and how you're being affected on a daily. Now, if you don't create content, you want to understand that you're still affected. Meaning you've watched these folks communicate, you're now starting to model them in the street, which means that when you're having a conversation with someone, then you're the one who's suppressing yourself because you know they're being suppressed. So you're both being in conversation and suppression. It's different than the old days when Reese Witherspoon and all those fools would go on talk shows and just have a script. Now they're trying to teach you transformative content. They're trying to by sharing illogical conversations, and then you're having sympathy for them because somebody out there went viral off of empathy and compassion and all these different things. However, we're in an insane world. We're not in a sane environment. This is what happens when the wrong people get in charge. This is what happens when people don't really know what they're actually doing. This is what happens when the election is rigged and we're looking at voter suppression. Guilty because guess what? I was voter suppressed. Ballots in the mail went into the trash. Ballots in the mail got sent back the day before the election. Hold on to that election document until make it get to her house the day before election. Everything that happened was happening to me, so I could tell you what the government system was up to. Suppression, 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 while this country proclaims to be for the people, when the reality is they're not for the people, they're for themselves. Because now what we're looking at is a generation of the 70s. The flower children who didn't really build a lot off of their own backs. Some of them were the parents, they're the children of the people who built the big companies like Johnson & Johnson. And so they only know money, but they're not the good kind of money. once again, there's a lot of forms of suppression. Is there anything else I want to tell you about this? The point of all of this is that suppression is everywhere. It will always be there. However, you have to empower yourself to understand what responsibility means, taking accountability and responsibility within yourself if you do something wrong, knowing what integrity means, and then continuing not to care, but to care what other people think about you, knowing who to mix and not mix with, and learning how to maneuver in this vicious behavior of what we're dealing with in society at this time. I want to say thank you for joining me on this podcast this morning. I'm coming from a secret location. My name is Cassandra.